Okay, good evening. Welcome to the People You Know show. This is a special segment continuing the discussion on Black Lives Matter from a mother's point of view. And I have with me two mothers, Janet and Bupe. And Janet, would you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me be here today with you guys. My name is Janet Dixon-Cahow, and I grew up in Montreal. I've known Charline forever, since before she was born, her and her wonderful family. My family's been a part of BCC. My siblings and my mom have been a part of BCC for a long time. And I currently live in just outside Philadelphia with my husband and our three boys. I have a 12, 13, and 14-year-old, all boys. And we moved here right before everything shut down. So we just moved into our home the end of February, the last week of February, and we've been pretty much confined in here since. And so it's been an interesting time, especially with everything that has exploded in the world, that we've been all together. So in one sense, it's been kind of good to be together as a family so we can discuss everything as it comes up, and they're not hearing things secondhand through school. So in that sense, it's been good. So a lot of great conversations.
That's good. And Bupe.
Yes, hi everyone. So I am Bupe Mwaikambo, and thank you, Charline, as well for bringing me onto this wonderful platform. I'm based in Montreal, and I've been going to Transformation Church for a while, for a very long time now, ever since I moved to Montreal from Peterborough to study, and then eventually I started working here, and we've been raising our family here. So I'm married to Sunday, who also goes to church, Sunday Nyamwena, who also goes to church at Transformation, and we have two kids. We have a 9-year-old daughter, Salika. She just turned 9 this year, and then we have a 5-year-old boy as well, Mika. So yeah, I mean, this whole period has been very, very enlightening, so many different levels. You go through one hurdle to the next. First of all, we went through the pandemic, and then, like Janet said, then things kind of exploded with the whole George Floyd and the racial injustices that came out of it. And then it was interesting to see how the entire world responded as well, and how even here in Canada, there's been many conversations as a result. So it's something that has really touched the globe. And it's also kind of challenged us as parents to, think about how we talk to our kids, and also whether or not we have the language and vocabulary to even be able to, have really productive and fruitful conversations with them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm here to listen as well, and to, share my perspective. So I think it's going to be an interesting time.
Thank you. And I myself, Charline, as it says on the screen, 3 kids, 17, 14, and 13, 2 girls and a son. My son's my youngest, and I attend VCC. Been there my whole entire life, and the Black Lives movement, Black Lives Matter movement, kind of forced me to reach out and make a platform where people are comfortable coming on and talking about things that either they've never really had to talk about before, or they are coming to realizations within themselves that they're noticing for the first time, that there is a big gap in between what they do believe and what do they actually practice in a day-to-day life. This whole conversation started a few weeks ago through some international headlines with the George Floyd and the Amy Cooper whole situation. Again, I believe that those instances coming together, setting everything off, and with everybody being at home for the COVID situation, all eyes was on everything, and that just started off this whole thing. For tonight, we want to talk from the point of view of a mother's perspective, because we're the ones who have to worry about our children going out into the world and dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. And so that's where the main theme of tonight is coming from. So we're just going to go right into it. And my first question to both of you is, how are you feeling right now in this moment?
Yeah, so I mean, I can start. So, um, I want to say that you know, we've had time to kind of digest what's been going on. So initially, you know, we were, like I said, kind of reading off the trauma from the COVID pandemic and having to be quarantined and having to adjust to everything that happened. And then, like I said, the headlines happened as well. And so, you know, having to kind of take in all of that, you know, all of that really gut wrenching, you know, fear and terror that came out of seeing, you know, someone lose their life on camera, and then having to then think about, you know, your own life and your family, and you know, what does race and equality mean here in Canada? Because I always try to bring it back to Canada. You know, the United States has their own kind of unique challenges, but then sometimes, you know, I was also reflecting, okay, so what does this mean in Canada? You know, what does race and equality look like in Canada? And I know that, you know, Canada, I've been reflecting Canada as a country that's kind of been founded on multiculturalism, and that's kind of been one of the strengths of the nation. But then at the same time, I feel like we don't necessarily talk about race as openly. So on the one hand, in the US, you know, race is kind of pretty out there, if you will. But in Canada, you know, there might be a perception that, you know, things are good. We are open to different types of cultures and peoples, but at the end of the day, you know, I feel like here it's, you know, I've been reflecting and I realize that here it's a bit more subtle. You know, it's not as overt, but it's only now that we're starting to see much more kind of overt cases that have not always been publicized in the news, but that have actually always been happening. So I feel like the conversation is becoming a bit louder than it used to be. So I've been reflecting a lot on, you know, what does it mean in Canada and what can we do here as parents as well. And, you know, as a parent, even with my husband, we always focus on advocating for our children. You know, when we take our, you know, my daughter started school, for example, kindergarten, she goes to an all-French school. And that's another thing, you know, if you're an immigrant in this country, you have, and you live in Quebec, you have to take your kids to French school, which is great because they get to learn the French language. But at the same time, you know, you're always wondering, are they going to be treated fairly and equally? So we're always wanting to be, you know, advocates for our kids, wanting to make sure that, you know, teachers don't look at them as, you know, not as equal as other children as well. We're looking at the classroom to see whether or not there's enough representation, you know, other kids that look like them in the classroom as well. So those are kind of like things that are always in the back of your mind. You're always kind of thinking about those issues and just trying to make sure that your child has the best shot possible and that they're not going to be limited because of other people's biases. So that's something that's always in the back of my mind. It's not something that I necessarily, you know, try to be aggressive about, but just always being mindful of it, because I know from my own experience that you don't always have the, you know, an equal playing field all the time. So I've been reflecting on all of that. And then also, you know, a scripture that really came to my mind and that kind of always drives me and helps me feel centered is, you know, the one that talks about how we've been fearfully and wonderfully made. So, you know, I always want to make sure that we come, in everything that we do, we come from a place of love. We know that God has made each and every individual to be unique and wonderful. And everybody has a role to play in this world. So I know that for our kids, it's important to teach them that, you know what, you have to love everybody, no matter what they look like. You have to stand up for everyone. So those are kind of like the biblical principles that, you know, at the foundation is what we try to teach our children as well. And so yeah, I've been reflecting on all of that and just trying to make sense of it all. You know, I'm not going to pretend to understand everything that's going on, but it's definitely challenged me to, you know, read up more. And like I said, build up my vocabulary, because sometimes, you know, you just say race, but then, like I said, in Canada, it's not always clear what racism is, because there could be microaggressions, they could be micro insults, they could be micro invalidations that happen. So it's important to understand those languages, as you know, that vocabulary as well, so that you can be able to articulate things better. So from my perspective, it's also just training myself and our children and, you know, our friends as well, just to have the language to explain what's happening, because people sometimes may tend to feel kind of defensive when you use the race word. And it's not just race against Black people, but also about, you know, there's Indigenous people, there's a lot of injustice there, especially in Canada, and other people of color. So just, I guess if you ask me how I'm feeling right now, it's just all of those thoughts are kind of circulating in my head, and I'm just trying to make sense of it. And I think having these conversations helps us to be able to make sense of all of that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Fair enough.
I think for me, I think it's a great question, especially as a mom. We're so, we're so busy all the time, and to have somebody just stop and ask us how we're feeling. How are we feeling through all of this?
Mhm.
And I'm living right here in the heart of America. And it's been beyond stressful. I'm not going to lie. It's been, it took me a while to watch just the George Floyd video, because some people were texting me and saying things, and I was like, "Ugh, I don't know if I can watch another video." I'm raising 3 young Black men. I've got 3 men, 3 young boys who just turned teens that I have to help prepare to go into the world to be seen as Black men. And I'm just not ready to keep watching these videos. And when I watched that video, my heart, I could not, I just broke. And, like I mentioned, we moved here recently. So we've been here like just a little over 3 months and been in the house like most people. And, we relocated from another state. And part of the reason we relocated was because of the lack of diversity in the state that we were previously living in. And as my kids were aging, I started to notice things were becoming different as they went from, the younger primary years, their kindergarten, first, second, third grade. And as they started to get a little bit older, I noticed things started to shift with their friends. And you don't want to believe it when you see it, like it's not about race, because not everything is about race. But I started to, like, when you have that information in the back of your head, like something just doesn't feel or something just doesn't seem right. Mm-hmm. And, I just let it go on. And I just thought, you know what, we're just going to work harder. We're just going to work harder, and I'm going to fight through this. And it's going to be different for my kids. It's the year 2018. It's the year 2019. It's going to be different. It absolutely is going to be different. And, I became very involved in the schools. And actually, I should also mention, my husband is white. So we're coming at it also from a perspective of, the white point of view in our home and the Black point of view. And so 2 of our kids are biracial, and 1 is fully Black. And, but in America, it doesn't matter if you're half Black, you're Black. And so who really cares? But the kids were in a school that was very, very little diversity. They were a part of a school that, because the diversity was so low, they were bringing in kids from the surrounding communities just to bring up the diversity in the school. And a lot of these kids were from lower income homes, and they brought them into the school. And I think they thought they were doing a good thing, but in the end, I would walk in the school, and the kids would get off the bus, and they would see me as a parent, really not the only Black parent in the school. And their eyes would be so wide, like, oh my gosh, there's another Black person here. And the kids were in a school where they never had a Black teacher. And so in that moment, I thought, this can't be right. And so I became a very active member in the PTO, the Parent Teacher Organization. I became the PTO president, just to show these kids, like, you can see Black people in power. And I would go to the school board, and I would tell them, like, what are you guys going to do about the fact that you have no minorities in the school? Not even the Spanish teacher is Spanish. And, and it just fell on deaf ears. And they finally hired a Black employee, and it was the janitor. And so I just started to see these things happen as my kids started to age, and as they moved on now into middle school, and I saw more of the same. And I would ask my kids, when they would come home for lunch, how was school? Who did you eat lunch with? And they would tell me they ate at the brown table. And I was like, what? But still, I just didn't want to accept what was going on back here. Like, this isn't right. But then, as a mom, first of all, you're only as happy as your saddest child. And, with your instincts that, like I mentioned, something wasn't right. And I just started to fall into this really bad funk. And I felt very isolated. I felt very alone. And I didn't feel like I had other people that I could talk to say, this is what's going on. This is what I'm feeling, because the community was so non-diverse, it became an issue, and it just became too much. And I realized, what, this is not the best situation for our family. And, we made the decision, we prayed about it. I talked to a lot of people about it. And we decided, like, you know what, we need to put our kids in a situation that's going to be better for them. And so we moved here, not to say it's going to be perfect where we're currently living, as we've only been in the house, but, you know, we felt it was important, like, you know, Bupe said that we wanted the kids to see more diversity, you know, around them. We wanted to be able to, you know, I remember one day driving down the street and there was a minivan that drove us, and my son said, "Look, Mom, there's Black people." And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not good. And so with everything that's just gone on in the world and all these things in the news, and I'm like, you know, you try to figure out, like, what is the best way to approach this? How do you want to discuss it with your kids? How do you not want to let them feel, especially at this age, you know, preteen, teen, that the world is going to judge them? Like, I never thought I was going to have to really share that. I thought for sure things were going to be different this time, at this age, at this stage in life, in 2020. And to know that in many ways, I feel like we've gone backwards. And these talks that I've been dreading, I never thought I would have to have, and to have to, you know, look my son in the eye, and I don't want to lie to him and say, you know, it's blown out of proportion, you know, the all lives matter versus the Black lives matter versus the blue line, you know, like, to try and navigate through all those conversations. But you know what? Here we are, and we're moms, and we've got to figure this out, and we will. And so I appreciate you asking the question, how are we doing? I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm frustrated, but I'm hopeful. So.
And I think that's the most important word behind everything we're feeling, the hopefulness, because that's it. And it's funny because that's whenever I have a conversation, that's where I start. How are you feeling right now in this moment? And my answer is the same as it was before. It depends on the day.
Right.
It depends on the day, the media that I've consumed, if I've prayed or I haven't prayed, or if I started my day off with the Lord or I haven't. It depends. And some days I'm upset. Some days I'm sad. Some days I'm frustrated. And some days I'm beyond mad. I am so mad that I could scream. But I'm hopeful in all those feelings, because I do believe it will change and it will get better. And the problems that we are seeing right now, something wonderful is going to come out of this, and a whole new paradigm within society will come from all this ugliness. And that's what I'm hopeful for. But until we get there, what is it that we can do as moms to encourage our children to want to thrive and stay who they are, without the world putting labels on them saying this is who you are? And that is something that I'm trying to still wrap my mind around. I don't want them feeling like just because the world sees them in one way, that's the way that they have to, that's the only way for them to be. Because I don't think that does them any service. They're all unique into themselves, and it's still our jobs as moms to make sure that their light still shines through. So that's where we are. Well, yeah, that's where we are. And when I say we, I mean like my family, my friends, my inner circle, is here just to make sure that they know that they're surrounded and that they're comfortable, and whatever they need, they'll get. So I guess then my next question, now that we know how everybody's feeling, is what have you discussed or shared with your children on this whole thing? Did they see the video? And if they did, what happened?
You want to start, Janet?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is Bupe, you starting?
Bupe, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, Janet, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I'm sorry, I got the order wrong.
No, it's okay.
Well, you know, kids these days with social media, you know, whether you want them to see it or not, especially with online school, everybody's doing nonstop e-learning. You have access to everything. So even if I wanted to shield them, there was no way.
True.
And so yeah, they have seen the video, and I think sadly it didn't really surprise them. They weren't like shell shocked. I think they'd seen enough already, more than I'd already thought they'd seen, or they'd already consumed enough information to know, okay, so there's a situation out there with Black people. You know, I think they've definitely come to an understanding. And so, but, you know, we sit down every week and we discuss with them and we ask them how they're doing. And, you know, especially with boys, you know, you just can't really sit a boy down and go, so how you feeling? Well, run right out the room. And you can just have that look on your face that you're about to ask that question, and they're gone. And so we've had to be very savvy with how we want to get information out of them. And so, they all have a different response, and you know, one is very quiet, one is just very matter of fact, and one is it's very black and white for him, for lack of a better term, but so the cops hate Black people, yeah, you know, and you know, yeah, white people hate Black people, and like and you know, but we let him talk. We just let him say what he wants to say, and then we gradually get in there and go, you know, first of all, your dad's white. He doesn't hate you, so you can't say white people hate Black people. And but you know, their poor young minds have had to consume all this information, and you know, so like I said, the blessing and the curse of the COVID is that we get to spend so much time with them, and we're able to just really help them and guide them and have conversation. And I think the most important thing for us is we want our kids to know that they have a safe place to land, you know, and they're going through a lot. They're isolated. They are, which is a huge thing. They're isolated. They don't even like to show their face on Zoom when they're in their school, you know, and in their classroom. And, you know, last week we had a situation with one of my boys where, you know, I asked him to do a chore and he got upset and decided he was just going to walk out the house. And I know they're at that age where they've got the hormones and everything like that. And he had no cell phone or anything like that. And we're new in the neighborhood. So he just walks out the house and he's just gone. And I'm like, I know he needs to figure things out, but then my heart is just beating. Like, where's he going? We're brand new. He's Black. Like, where is he going? Like, what's happening? And I know I can't always like be overly protective, but I can't help myself. And I sent one of his brothers, like, get on the bike, go see if you can find your brother. And so then he finds him down like about a half a mile at his school. And so he comes back home, and then 45 minutes later, my other son wasn't back. And I'm like, so I get in the car and I find him like a good distance away, just sitting under a tree at a school, but he's sitting in this residential neighborhood across from homes. And like I said, we're new here. They don't know him in the neighborhood, and he's just going through what he's going through, and he just needs some time. And I look over and there's a cop parked just sitting there staring at him. And my heart was just beating, and I put the window down and I'm like, did you see that police officer over there? And he's like, no, I don't have my contacts in. And I just said, get in the car. And I didn't want to make a huge deal out of the whole thing, but I said, you got to understand that you cannot sadly just walk off like that. You're in a residential neighborhood. People don't know you. And if they're out with their kids, little kids, and there's this strange Black boy sitting across the street from my house under a tree, just staring towards my house. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing that the cop was there. Who knows? Maybe the cop was saying, I'm just going to watch him to protect him. You never know. But, you know, by the grace of God, I just happened to just get in the car and get there at that time. And I'm like, you know, so I could have that teachable moment with him.
Right.
And so I think he's definitely wrestling with who I am, how the world sees me. And we're also wrestling with, how do we help them? How do we do this? How do we help them navigate this insane time that us as adults who've been around for a long time can't even fully comprehend? And so it's challenging, but they've seen it all. They've seen all the videos, and there's no shielding. So, but we just remind them that we're here, we love them, and we just take it one day at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, so my kids are 9 and 5, so I have not shown them the video um, because I just think it'd be too traumatic, and I don't think at least my 5-year-old would not even be able to understand what it all means. Um, because as far as they're concerned, they don't even understand what race is. So I know, like if I look back to my my daughter when I think she started asking questions about the color of her skin when she was around daycare age, so maybe around 4 or 5. That's when she started becoming curious about why her skin was brown, and why other people's color was peach. She used to call, like the white people, she called them peach. And then she had this obsession with hair as well. As a little girl, she wanted the hair to be straight because her hair is naturally curly because now she's Black, so she started having questions about that. So for me, it's been trying to kind of instill confidence in them about who they are, and about being proud of about their heritage. And then also just, so as far as race is concerned, we've been having the conversation now because it's coming up more and more. And then they also hear us in the house talking. So they're like, what is racism? So they want to understand. And so, so when they ask those kind of questions, we try to tell them in, as kid-friendly language as possible that, you have to, it's when people judge others because of what they look like, because whether it's a skin color or whether it's because of a disability they have or where they're from. So it's basically a judgment that other people put on other children or other people just because of what they look like. But I still wonder whether or not she understands that, and I won't even think about explaining that. My 5-year-old won't even be able to understand. I can't even get into focus for 5 minutes. So trying to explain to him about race is a whole other issue. So we've tried to show them like videos, like kid-friendly videos that talk about diversity. In the home, we try to, have books that show representation, so not just having books with one type of, with one type of, ethnical background, but also showing, children who are Black, so that they can see themselves in books as well. Or if you buy them toys, you get them toys that represent who they look like as well. So I feel like, this whole situation that we're in right now is really just trying to instill in them, okay, this is who you are, you're different. But at the same time, I also don't want to kind of cripple them already. I think you alluded to it, Janet, in that I don't want them to feel like they already have a handicap going into the world, because at the same time, they're very, kids are bright, they're smart. I want them to be free. You don't want to add baggage into their lives when they're still young. So you have to balance when is the right time to talk about this as well. I was just asking my daughter the other day, have they talked to you about race in school? And she's like, no. So this is also, it kind of rings a bell in my head that, the schools also have to try and find a way of having these conversations with children as well, which is something that's not necessarily going on, at least in the school that she goes to. So I guess I'm maybe earlier in the journey in that I'm still raising younger children and trying to give them the tools that they need so that they can feel confident, that they can, be friendly to everyone, that they can love everyone. Tell them that they have to speak up if they see somebody as being teased or bullied for no good reason. Like if it's an unjustified reason, talk to the teacher, or don't be a bystander. So just trying to raise good citizens, good human beings, if you will. So, but I thought the video was just, it was going to be too much for them at this time.
No, totally get that. My children haven't seen the video. They don't want to see it. I was worried at first, and then but I haven't seen the whole video either. I think I got to about minute 3 or 4, and I just like, I can't watch this. Everybody explained it to me enough that I felt like I watched it. Yeah, so when, for sure, because the technology is there, they all have their phones, they all have their devices. For sure, I thought that they would have watched it just so that they could keep up with their friends. So I was very surprised when they mentioned they have not seen it. I asked them if they wanted to watch it because I was prepared to watch it with them. And then their reaction was just like, no, they they don't watch horror movies, or they don't watch that kind of stuff. So to have somebody's life taken from them on screen they don't want to see that. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to push the matter. But then, like Janet, as you mentioned, you can't just sit down with boys and say, let's talk. That doesn't work at all. So my medium for whenever I need to talk to Malcolm about something is Fortnite or video games. I play video games with all of them. And so usually, like right now, he's into Fortnite. And when I need to get his attention without him realizing I'm coming for him, it's through Fortnite. So, we're sitting like on the couch in front of the TV, and, he's like, flank them here. And I'm like, so, how's school? Oh, and thank God I probably still have about another year before he catches on that this is how we talk. So like whenever he's talking about Fortnite or something like that, it's easy for me to just say, oh, by the way, what do you think about this? And then that's how we talk. Emily's 17, so she's old enough now, she's worldly and she's working, so she's out there, so she sees. I'm not berating her, but that's how she comes across, and I love her for it, because then she wants to come and meet me where I am, and she's like, I this is my opinion, and I'm like, okay, let's share. Sarah's still in the age where she's between both, but she's so free-spirited that just talking about it brings out a very emotional, she gets very emotional about it. She doesn't understand why. And because they are biracial, they feel conflicted, because they're like, we have sides in both of us that they're clashing in the States. Like, so they'll see like whites yelling, nigger and all this other stuff. And then they're like, but half of our family is like that. And, so we don't get that. And then if you want to take it a whole nother level, then you have here in Quebec, we have Anglo and Francophone. And then you have those white people who are, we're in Quebec, it's all French, they're sovereigntists. And then you have the other half of the family that are liberals, so now they're clashing too. So they've always felt like they're in the middle of something, whether it's language-based or whether it's ethnicity. But they are trying, I guess, to understand why. And I think the question, like my son asked the other day, was like, I just understand why they don't like Black people. Like, is it just because they couldn't keep them as slaves? And I was like, it's not going to be solved with one answer kind of thing. So I think everybody has to look within themselves to figure out, why do I have this prejudice against this person that I don't know? And then you have to hear what their answer to that is. But it's as teens and as young children, and young children, they're not escaping this either. I have a niece, she's 5, she's 7 now. When she was 5, she was at daycare, and a girl basically told her, your skin is ugly. I don't like the color of your skin. And she came home and she told her mom, who's my sister, and from that point on, my sister constantly is like giving her the message, you have great skin, you have a beautiful smile, you are smart, your hair is beautiful. To the point now, she can do it on her own without her mom prompting her into it. And it's just those little things that if somebody puts into you, that you can end up carrying for the rest of your life, if you don't have somebody coming and saying, that is not true. And it's not true for the following reasons. At some point, I do want to have another discussion on colorism, because I think that whole paradigm is interesting. I'm fair skinned. My sisters are darker skinned. My niece does not believe that I am a blood sister. And even though we tell her, she's like, why do you call her grandma? And I'm like, she's my mom. And she's like, but you don't look like the aunties. Like, and so, we laugh about it, but I'm like, you know what? That's a whole nother thing. But going back to our point right now, discussing the matters with the kids, um, it's at the point now where it's like I want to share everything with them to prepare them, but then it's like I don't want to feel like this is so heavy that they can't move as freely as they want to, where they want to go. Janet, your son's reaction. My son has that too. Like, and that drives me crazy because he'll leave the house and his wallet and his phone are right there. And I'm like, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm like, not even just because of black and white. You just can't do that because if anything happens, nobody knows where you are and nobody can find you or nobody can reach you. I've had the like Sarah got hit by a car last summer, literally like 2 blocks from here. Car flipped her because she's so tall. It literally just flipped her over the car and she landed on her side. But I heard it from here and I was like, what the heck is that? And literally my heart felt like it was coming out of my chest and I'm like, that's mine. That's my child out there. So, and I don't run, ladies. I'm overweight. I'm a big girl. Okay. I ran those 2 blocks like in lickety split to see my child hit the ground. And I was just like, oh my God. So when they leave the house, that heightened sense that comes across all of us, I'm sure when they're out of your sight or when they're out of your line, it is powerful. So I can only imagine, like they mentioned in the video that at one point he was calling for his mother. And I get that because I truly believe that the lines that connect us to our loved ones are so strong that they transcend time and space, that no matter, I believe that wherever my kids will end up in the world, I will know if something is wrong with them immediately. And she was only 2 blocks away and I literally felt like, oh my gosh, this thing just came over me. And like I said, I was there to watch her hit the ground. And even, my mom and my other sisters, they're like, how did you? And I'm like, I don't know how I got there. I just got there. So when I send them out into the world, especially like right now, that fear is there, but I don't want it to cripple where they want to go just because of the color of their skin. So, that's why these conversations are important, because sometimes you need to hear that you're not the only one who's scared. When you said that, when you mentioned about your son leaving, I'm like, yeah, my son does that too. And I thought it was just like, something within him. But then as you were explaining it, I'm like, you know what? He is in that new teen, the hormones. He doesn't really know how to put everything together. He doesn't probably even understand why he's so frustrated, or if not frustrated. So, when that happens, it's like, I just need you to make sure you have whatever it is you need to have, that whoever comes at you when you're in that moment outside of the house, you're still protected, So that's a whole nother situation that you also, as a mother of a child who's colored or black or biracial or Native American or whatever, you have to worry about too. Like when they go out, like you feel like you have to arm them with something. Otherwise, are you really helping them get through society? And then, so I think with the movement and everything, that's where the next question comes in. How do you think the movement should stay relevant? Hi. Join us on the next installment of this discussion that will be released in a few days. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.